Peyton, how are you doing today?
Doing well. How you doing?
I'm really good. So I looked into it a little bit, but I think this movie might have broken a world record in terms of having the one actor play the most characters on screen at one time.
What do we beat? Multiplicity? What did we?
Well,
Who came second?
the one that came up the most was I've actually forgotten the name of it now, but I believe it's a Bollywood movie, and he plays 45 characters on screen at the same time.
Oh,
So
right.
you've wiped out with a scene of this, but when it comes to directing a scene like that where you're literally inundated with Paul Rudd's, like what is how does that go?
Well, when you're working with one Paul Rudd, you're already working with a diva, and now you're working with hundreds of divas. It's really hard. That scene was a technical nightmare for all the obvious reasons. Because we weren't just sort of like the camera wasn't just static and recording them. There were all these camera moves and motion control things. And it would have been entirely impossible without Paul Rudd, because what Paul brought to it, some actors I think might have just been, they might have broken under the weight of what we were trying to do. Because in doing all that stuff, technically, you had to keep the spontaneity of Scott and all the other Scotts. But Paul has this great, his sense of timing and rhythm are obviously impeccable, as you've seen in his entire body of work. But him remembering exactly where he was standing, what the eye line was, what the reactions were to the one he's talking to, but also the one behind him, it was a marvel to watch him do that. And if we didn't have Paul, if we had a lesser actor doing that, I think we would probably still be there shooting that sequence. It also had this physicality where he's climbing. We had to build these big sort of basically blue screen jungle gyms when you get the whole sort of mounds of Scots, and that's, Paul is climbing, he's cabled in, he's climbing and reacting. We have all these stuntmen in blue suits grabbing him, and when he's getting buried alive, Scott had to sit there with stunt people in tightly tight blue suits, rubbing up against him everywhere. It was an absurd thing to watch, but man, he committed to doing it, and again, it's yet another testament to why Paul is so great.
Yeah, I think it's the kind of performance that like people and like award ceremonies and stuff can absolutely overlook, because it requires such a precise, right. I mean, a mountain of me's, and I have to climb out and climb to, like that requires such a specific type of performance, and I think he absolutely nailed it. And on the flip side, obviously everyone is just bowing down to the greatness of Jonathan Majors. Before his performance for his character, were there actually, beyond the comic books, were there actually any potentially real life touchstones of like, this is the kind of vibe we're going for with this version of this character?
It's a great question. Jonathan and I had many conversations, early on about what would it be like to be in the presence of Kang the Conqueror, a character who doesn't live in a linear fashion, past, present, and future. He lives in these time loops and multiple loops, and he makes reference to fighting the Avengers multiple times, so many times in the past he can't keep them straight. What does that do to this person's ability to form attachments with other beings? We love the idea that there's an economy of movement and an economy of language with Kang. He operates in his own rhythm. It's a whole different vibration than Scott Lang's vibration. It excited us to put those two energies on a collision course in this movie. But we also talked about, like, he's literally a man out of time. He's in exile in the quantum realm and can't access all his time-traveling abilities. So there's a broken quality to this guy. And also, as a man out of time, there's sort of, he's kind of the ultimate loner. We loved the idea in the movie of kind of exploring that past relationship with Janet Van Dyne, where they were, for a time, working together to try and get out. And then they each sort of feel mutually betrayed when the truth of who he is comes out. But maybe that's the closest relationship he's ever had with, another being. That was exciting. And we talked a lot about trauma, and like, clearly a guy like Kang who's been through all this stuff, what's the effects of multiple, infinite trauma on this person? So all these things, I think, informed his performance.
Peyton, thank you so much for your time today.
All right, thank you.
I'm sorry, Cassie.